Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I never thought an ultimatum would come wrapped in such a calm voice. Elizabeth didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked at me across the kitchen table like she'd already rehearsed the moment 100 times. We'd been married 9 years. Long enough to know each other's silences. Long enough for habits to replace passion. Long enough for comfort to start masquerading as distance. I'm James. I'm 42. I work in logistics, predictable hours, predictable life. Or at least, I thought it was predictable until that night. It started like a normal conversation. She asked how my day was. I answered. I asked about hers. She shrugged. Then she said there was something important we needed to talk about. That sentence alone can change the air in a room. I waited, hands wrapped around a mug I didn't even remember pouring. Elizabeth took a breath and said she felt trapped, that she loved me, but not in the way she used to. I'd heard variations of that before from friends, from co-workers going through divorces they swore they never saw coming. I stayed quiet. I didn't want to interrupt her rhythm. She told me she'd met someone. Not an affair, she insisted. At least not yet. Someone who made her feel alive again. Someone who saw parts of her she said I'd stopped noticing. I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, the one you get when you already know the ending, but still hope the story might change. She said she didn't want to lie or sneak around. She wanted honesty. Then she said the words I still replay in my head at night. Share me or we divorce. For a moment, I honestly thought I misheard her. I asked her to repeat it. She did, slower this time, like she was explaining a complicated rule to a child. She said this wasn't about betrayal. It was about evolution, about modern relationships, about how love didn't have to be ownership. She talked like she'd read from a script written by people who never have to live with the consequences of their theories. I didn't explode. I didn't raise my voice. I asked questions instead. How long had she been thinking about this? She said months. Had she already discussed it with him? She said yes. Had she imagined how I'd feel? She hesitated, then said she hoped I'd be open-minded. That hesitation told me everything. If this part of the story already feels heavy, take a second to like the video so it reaches people who might be living this exact moment silently. Elizabeth leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, like the hardest part was already over. She said if I said no, she'd understand, but she wouldn't stay. This was her line in the sand. She looked relieved saying it, like finally speaking the truth had lightened her load by transferring it on to me. I looked around our kitchen. The framed photos, the magnets from trips we took when we still laughed easily. The house we'd built a life in, piece by piece, without ever imagining a conversation like this. I asked her what sharing meant. Dates? Nights away? Emotional intimacy? Physical? She said it didn't matter, that it would evolve naturally. That answer scared me more than anything else she'd said. When someone can't define the rules, it usually means they don't plan to follow any. She reached for my hand. I pulled mine back, not in anger, just instinct. She frowned, like that reaction surprised her. She said I was being dramatic, that plenty of couples made this work, that it didn't have to change how she felt about me. I almost laughed at that. Feelings don't work like light switches. You don't add a third person and expect the original connection to stay untouched. At this point in the story, I want to know your instinctive reaction. Drop a comment and tell me honestly what you would have said in my place. I asked her if she'd be okay if the roles were reversed, if I found someone else and asked her to share me. She didn't answer right away. Then she said that was different, that she wasn't wired for that. I nodded. There it was, the double standard dressed up as self-discovery. She told me to take the night to think about it, that she'd be staying at a friend's place. As she packed an overnight bag, she told me she hoped I'd choose love over fear. After she left, the house felt hollow. Not quiet, hollow. I sat on the couch, staring at a wall we'd painted together years ago. I thought about every compromise I'd made without realizing it. Every time I put stability over excitement, assuming that was what marriage required. I wasn't angry yet. I was something colder than that. Clear, If you've ever faced a moment that split your life into before and after, type the word clarity in the comments. I didn't sleep that night. I wasn't pacing or spiraling. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to a house that suddenly felt like it no longer belonged to both of us. Around 4 a.m, I realized something uncomfortable but undeniable. Elizabeth didn't give me an ultimatum because she was confused. She gave it to me because she'd already chosen. The only question left was whether I would go along quietly or remove myself from the equation entirely. By morning, the shock had worn off, replaced by something steadier. Resolve. I showered, dressed, and went to work like it was any other day. Emails, meetings, coffee that tasted like nothing. I didn't tell anyone what was happening. This wasn't a group decision. This was mine. Around noon, Elizabeth texted asking if I thought about it. I replied that I had. She sent a heart emoji, as if that softened what she was asking me to accept. When I got home that evening, she was already there, sitting at the kitchen table again. Same seat, same calm posture. She smiled cautiously, like someone approaching a skittish animal. She asked if I was ready to talk. I sat down across from her and told her I was. I said I understood she wanted something different from life now. I said I appreciated her honesty. Her shoulders relaxed. She thought this was going her way. Then I told her my answer. I said I wasn't willing to share my wife. Not emotionally, not physically, not in any version dressed up as progress. I said marriage, to me, meant choosing each other even when it stopped being exciting. Especially then. Her face tightened. She said I was choosing fear. I said no, I was choosing self-respect. I told her if she wanted to pursue something else, she was free to do that, but she would be doing it without me. She accused me of being controlling, of refusing to grow, of throwing away years over one conversation. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I said something that surprised both of us. I said this conversation didn't erase our years, but it did define their ending. I stood up, not to storm out, but because the conversation was done. I told her I'd be filing for divorce the next morning. The silence that followed was different from the one the night before. This one unsettled her. She asked if I was serious. I said I was. She asked if there was really no compromise. I said no, not on this. If this moment made you feel that tightness in your chest, consider sharing this story with someone who needs to hear it but won't say out loud themselves. Over the next few days, reality set in. Logistics replaced philosophy. Lawyers replaced late-night talks. Elizabeth tried to walk things back, framing it as a phase, a curiosity she could suppress. But once an ultimatum is spoken, it can't be unheard. I didn't hate her. I just couldn't unsee the version of her willing to risk everything we built for something undefined. Friends had opinions. Some said I was too rigid. Others quietly admitted they wished they'd had the courage to draw clearer lines in their own lives. I moved into an apartment across town. It was smaller, quieter, and mine. The first night there, I slept better than I had in months. Not because I was happy, but because I wasn't betraying myself to keep someone else comfortable. Elizabeth and I finalized the divorce 6 months later. No dramatic courtroom scenes, just signatures and polite distance. The last thing she said to me was that she hoped I'd understand someday. I told her I already did. I understood that love without boundaries isn't freedom. It's erosion. Do you think ultimatums ever lead to healthy relationships, or do they always signal the end? Share your perspective in the comments, and let's discuss it honestly. I don't tell this story because I think I'm a hero. I tell it because too many people stay silent when their values are put on the negotiating table. I didn't leave because I stopped loving Elizabeth. I left because I refused to love myself less. If this story gave you something to think about, like the video, comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more real stories about boundaries, choices, and the moments that define us.